My name is William C. Durant. People remember me as the man who founded General Motors, co-founded Chevrolet, and changed the way Americans move, think, and live. I've been called a showman, a gambler, a dreamer, and once a merchant prince of motors. Tonight, I will tell you the story of my life. Let me start with something unexpected. I never finished high school. I didn't graduate from college. I didn't even like automobiles at first. But I had a gift, a feel for people, for markets, and for big dreams that looked impossible until they weren't. If you were me waking up in 1870s Flint, Michigan, if you'd seen what I saw, struggled as I struggled, would you have done it differently? Or might you have brought something even greater to the world? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you could send a message to me in the past, what would you write? Leave a comment below. Now listen to this interesting story about my life journey. I'm born in Boston, 1861. My full name is William Crapo Durant. Yes, Crapo. My mother was Rebecca Crapo, daughter of the governor of Michigan, and we were once quite respectable. But that was before my father walked out on us in 1869. After that, we weren't Boston society anymore. We packed our lives and moved to Flint, Michigan, to live with my aunt and uncle. Flint was nothing like Boston. It was rougher, more practical. The people here worked with their hands. I suppose that's where it began. Learning to survive without inherited wealth or a polished last name. I dropped out of high school at 17. Not because I was lazy, I just couldn't stand the classroom. I needed to move, to do something. I took a job at my grandfather Henry Crapo's lumberyard. He was a stern man, but he taught me something valuable: how to talk to people, how to sell. That job had me hauling boards and memorizing timber grades, sure, but it also had me listening to what people needed, what they feared, what they didn't even know they wanted yet. From there, I drifted through small jobs, eventually landing as a cigar salesman, walking from town to town, pitch book in hand. That was my university. I learned to read people's faces, to hear a no and treat it like a not yet. In 1886, I meet a man named Josiah Dort. Together, we put our heads together and start the Flint Road Cart Company. You want to know what we made? Lightweight, stylish horse carriages, affordable, practical, but with a touch of flair. Our secret? We gave people what they didn't know they needed yet. Sound familiar? We grow fast. By 1900, we're the biggest carriage manufacturer in the country. Me, a dropout from Flint, overseeing factories filled with hundreds of workers, watching rail cars loaded with road carts heading across the country. That feeling? It's like standing on a mountaintop you built with your own two hands. Have you ever built something from nothing like that? If so, tell me in the comments. Now here's the twist. I hate automobiles at first. I really do. I think they're noisy, smelly, and dangerous. Nothing compared to the grace of a fine carriage pulled by a well-groomed team of horses. But that changes. One day, I see a young man driving up Saginaw Street in Flint in a crude little contraption with a gas engine sputtering like a sick dog. It's rattling and smoking, but it moves. No horse, just gears and ambition. Something clicks. If a machine like that can move, if it can run, then it's only a matter of time before the world wants it. The same way they once wanted carriages, now they'll want cars. Not the crude ones, not the smoking beasts with loose wheels and bucking engines, but something safe, reliable, something that doesn't scare the neighbors, something Buick. But that's the next part of my story. Still, in these early years, I learned something important. You have to see what's coming. Most people live in the present. I try to live a few years ahead. I'm not always right, but when I am, I change the game. If you were me, standing at the height of carriage success, would you abandon it for a mechanical monster most people laughed at? Would you risk everything to chase a future no one asked for? Think about it. Then tell me, what would you do, Buick? That's the name that pulls me deeper into the future. The year is 1904. I'm already a wealthy man by now, from the carriage trade, living comfortably, with no need to dabble in anything new. But comfort makes a man slow. And I don't want to be slow. David Dunbar Buick, a quiet and brilliant inventor from Detroit, has built something special. A gasoline-powered engine that's smoother and stronger than what others have managed. But he can't sell it. He's an engineer, not a showman. And without sales, invention goes nowhere. That's where I come in. I visit the Buick Motor Company in its scrappy, almost bankrupt state. There's barely enough money to pay the bills. But I see something. Not just in the car, but in the idea of the car. The same instinct that helped me make Flint Road Cart the top carriage brand now whispers that the automobile is next. And Buick? Buick is the vehicle to take me there, literally and figuratively. So I make a choice. I take control of the company. You might be wondering, why risk my fortune on a car company with no future? Why not play it safe? I'll tell you. Because every now and then you come across a new world disguised as a problem. And that's what Buick was. If you were me, watching a market in its infancy, knowing what could be if only people trusted the machines, would you leap? Would you bet it all on a whisper? Buick grows fast under my direction. I don't build the engines. That's not my talent. My talent is telling the story, selling the dream. I bring on a young race car driver named Louis Chevrolet. I send Buick cars to compete in races, and they win. We make headlines. Suddenly, the car isn't a death trap. It's a thoroughbred. Strong, fast, reliable. People start to want what they used to fear. And here's where the wheels in my head really start spinning. You see, I don't want to just sell one kind of car. That's too small. I begin to imagine an empire of car companies, different makes for different people. A car for the wealthy, a car for the worker, a car for the farmer. All under one umbrella, sharing parts, resources, and ideas, like a federation, or a symphony with different instruments all playing together. That idea becomes General Motors. In 1908, I form GM and bring Buick into it. That's the cornerstone. Then I start acquiring other companies, Oldsmobile, Cadillac, Oakland. Each one adds a new voice, a new market, a new strength. Most people think I'm crazy, banks especially, but I have a vision, and I'm not afraid of complexity. If a horse can be tamed, so can 100 factories. But not everyone sees it that way. Imagine you're a banker in 1909 watching me buy up companies left and right with borrowed money and big promises. Would you back me? Or would you pull the plug? The bankers grow nervous. I'm borrowing too much, moving too fast. They think I'm reckless. I think I'm bold. There's a fine line between the two, and sometimes it all depends on whether your gamble pays off. Still, I'm not slowing down. I hire a young man named Alfred P. Sloan to run the Hyatt Roller Bearing Company, one of the suppliers we need. That name will become much more important later. For now, I'm laying the tracks, and the train is racing forward. Buick is no longer just a car. It's a promise. It's the symbol of American progress. And me? I'm no longer the carriage king of Flint. I'm becoming something else entirely. There's this moment I remember, standing in one of the first Buick plants, listening to the hum of machines and watching the workers bent over their tasks. Sparks flying, wheels turning. I can smell the oil and the ambition, and I realize I'm building something that's going to last far beyond me. Have you ever had a moment like that? When you know deep in your gut that you're standing inside history, your history? If you were me then, seeing the pieces come together, would you push even harder? Or pull back and protect what you've built? It's easy to dream when things go well. But what happens when the dream starts to wobble? That's coming. But not just yet. For now, I ride the Buick wave straight into a bigger idea than the world has ever seen. The year is 1908, and I am sitting in the back of a car, one of our own Buicks, rolling through a quiet Michigan morning, not quite able to stop the flood of thoughts in my head. I've just signed the papers to create General Motors. It doesn't exist before me. There's no model for what I'm trying to do, a multi-brand automobile corporation. People think I've lost my mind. But I know something most don't. Industries aren't born fully formed. They are assembled, bolt by bolt, person by person. So I get to work. I begin acquiring companies, Oldsmobile first, then Cadillac. Each one is different. Olds has been around since the earliest days of the horseless carriage. Cadillac brings precision engineering and a reputation for luxury. I'm not just collecting trophies here. I'm building a structure where each brand fits a role. If a man can't afford a Cadillac, let him buy an Oldsmobile. If he wants power and style, give him a Buick. And soon, I'll have more. General Motors becomes a whirlwind. Sometimes I forget to breathe. Factories, meetings, rail cars, orders. I'm raising capital constantly, negotiating deals faster than the ink can dry. But I need more than companies. I need integration. I want to control not just the cars, but the parts, the bearings, the ignition systems, the dealerships. That's when I go after suppliers like Hyatt Roller Bearing and AC Spark Plug. I bring them all under the GM umbrella. It's not just buying, it's orchestration. I start imagining GM like a machine itself, one where all the pieces feed and drive each other. The parts division feeds the manufacturers. The manufacturers feed the dealers. The dealers feed the customers. Everyone moves in rhythm, but I'm still borrowing money, a lot of it. If you were in my shoes, watching the dream take shape, but knowing that every inch of it rests on debt, what would you do? Would you slow down? Or would you double down before someone else beats you to the finish line? I choose to double down. I keep pushing. I even try to bring in Ford, believe it or not. Yes, Henry Ford. I see his Model T taking off like wildfire, and I approach him with an offer to fold Ford Motor Company into GM. But Henry, proud and independent, refuses. He doesn't want to be part of someone else's dream. He wants his own. I understand that, and part of me envies it. Still, I keep going. In 1910, GM has ballooned. We're now producing thousands of cars. But there's turbulence ahead. The banks, those quiet men in dark suits, are watching me too closely now. I've been using company stock to finance expansion. My borrowing catches up with me. The stockholders lose confidence. They don't understand what I'm trying to build. They think I'm flying too close to the sun. They force me out. Just like that. Imagine it. You create something from nothing. You take the risks. You chase the future. And then, you're pushed aside from your own company. I'm out of General Motors. Not with a bang, but a quiet shove from behind a boardroom door. If you were me, would you feel angry, betrayed, maybe even a little foolish? Or would you feel more determined than ever to prove them wrong? I'll be honest with you. I was heartbroken. For a while, I couldn't even speak about GM without a lump forming in my throat. I had built it. Every beam, every contract, every company folded into it. I knew them like the back of my hand. But I'm not the kind of man to stay down for long. That night, as I sat alone looking out over the quiet streets of Flint, I made a promise to myself. I would come back. Not just to GM, but to the driver's seat of the entire industry. Because no one else could see the road ahead quite like I could. Sometimes, when something you've made is taken from you, it doesn't destroy you. It sets a fire in your chest that won't go out. So what would you do, sitting where I sat, staring at the ruins of your own dream? Would you disappear quietly into retirement? Or would you start again? I chose the latter, and my next move would surprise them all. I don't sleep much in 1911. My mind is too busy sketching new paths, rethinking the chessboard, plotting a return to the game. I've lost General Motors, but not my instinct, not my eye for talent, not my sense of timing. That's when Louis Chevrolet walks into my life like a spark plug finding an engine. A Swiss-born race car driver with hands as quick as his mind and a taste for speed I admire. He doesn't have a business head, but he's got the name, the flair, the charisma. That's something you can't teach. The name Chevrolet rolls off the tongue like music. So I ask him, want to build a car together? Just like that, the Chevrolet Motor Company is born. I bring in friends, trusted partners, men who believe in me when the bankers don't. I guide the ship. Louis designs the first cars, flashy and powerful. We launched the Classic 6. It's no Model T, we can't touch Ford's price yet. But it turns heads. And in this game, attention is gold. But here's the truth they don't tell you in school. Talent without direction can be chaos. Louis and I, we clash. Often. He wants performance. I want marketability. He wants big engines. I want cars for the common man. Eventually, it becomes clear. There's only room for one wheel at the helm. I buy him out. It's not personal, just necessary. If Chevrolet is going to become more than a racer's dream, it needs strategy. And I have one. You see, while the world thinks I'm building a car company, I'm building a weapon, a vehicle to retake my throne. Every dollar that Chevrolet earns, I invest into GM stock. Quietly, patiently. No parades, no newspaper stories. Just me and my brokers, scooping up shares like squirrels before winter. By 1915, Chevrolet is no longer a side project. It's a force. The public loves the reliability. The factories hum like beehives. We introduce affordable models right on Ford's heels. And behind the scenes, I am building an arsenal of stock certificates, waiting for the moment when I can strike. And that moment comes in 1916. The stockholders? They never saw it coming. I walk back into General Motors, not as an employee, not as a hopeful, but as the man with the majority vote. The same board that ousted me 6 years ago now has no choice but to hand back the reins. I become president again. Just imagine their faces. Have you ever been told you're finished? That your dream is over? And then, through patience, through clever moves, through quiet power, you return, stronger than before. If you have, then you know the taste of that moment. If not, well, one day I hope you do. It's better than champagne. Now I have Chevrolet and GM both under my control, like a general returning from exile with his own army. But I've learned from my first fall. This time, I want to make GM more stable, more comprehensive. I form United Motors, a holding company for the parts and accessories that keep the industry alive. Delco, Harrison Radiator, Dayton Engineering. That way, GM no longer depends on outsiders. We control everything from spark to steering. Still, I take risks, big ones. I believe in expansion, in the American future. That the automobile isn't a passing fad, it's the new horse, the new train, the new everything. So when people say I'm overreaching again, I wave them off. I believe in building high, not small. But what would you do if you had fallen once because you reached too far? Would you play it safe the second time around? Or would you stretch even higher, thinking maybe this time the sky won't burn you? I chose the sky, and for a while, it works. But trouble always rides just behind success. And soon, another storm brews on the horizon. Now I sit atop General Motors once more, president, chairman, leader of the greatest automotive constellation in the country. You'd think I'd be satisfied. But if you've been listening closely, you know me better than that. I'm not the kind of man who rests in the sunlight. No, I chase the next horizon even while the dust hasn't settled from the last. It's 1916. GM is growing fast, maybe too fast. But I can't stop now. The war in Europe has sent shockwaves across industries. Steel, oil, rubber, every market's in flux. I don't see crisis. I see opportunity. I pour money into new plants, buy up suppliers, expand into Canada. I even dip into aviation. Who knows, maybe someday cars will fly. Some of my board members begin to murmur. He's gambling again. They whisper behind polished walnut doors. They remember the first time. Remember 1910. Remember how I stretched GM so wide it cracked. But I remind them Chevrolet saved us. I saved us. We aren't just building cars anymore. We're building an empire. I want GM to be the entire auto experience. Manufacturing, financing, selling, servicing, all under one umbrella. To achieve that, I need one last piece. DuPont. Yes, the chemical giant. They supply our paint and chemicals, and they've got more money than a dozen banks. I approach Pierre S. DuPont and convince him to invest in GM. At first, he's a cautious partner, but I know how to charm. I bring him in as a board member. Before long, he's one of our major shareholders. And at first, we make a good team. He respects my vision, and I value his discipline. But discipline and vision don't always hold hands. You see, I still believe in big inventories, big expansions, big plans. I keep cash flowing out like water from a fire hose. I don't mind debt. I believe debt is just a lever, one you pull hard when the prize is high. But Pierre, he's old school, conservative. He believes cash should sit neatly in a ledger, not dance across new factories and uncertain ventures. We clash. Quietly at first, then louder. Meanwhile, I keep betting on growth. In 1919, I buy back the parts of Chevrolet still outside GM, folding it fully into the mothership. It's the final fusion. Chevrolet now is General Motors. We launch new divisions, Frigidaire for refrigeration, GMX for auto financing. I'm not just selling cars, I'm creating entire ecosystems. And that's where the trouble begins again. By 1920, the post-war economy starts to sputter. Inflation, shortages, and rising interest rates squeeze our margins. The auto market, once red-hot, cools rapidly. Dealers can't sell. Inventories balloon. Pierre and the board call emergency meetings. We're overextended, they say. We need to cut back. I disagree. I say, ride it out. The slump will pass. If we retreat now, we lose momentum. But this time, I'm not holding all the cards. Pierre uses his influence to sway the board. Slowly, methodically, he builds consensus. In November 1920, they move. A vote. A change in leadership. Just like that, I'm out again. Twice in one lifetime. The same company. Have you ever built something with your own hands? Watched it rise into the sky, only to be told you can no longer touch it? That it's no longer yours? That's the moment I lived through. A second time. But I don't shout. I don't beg. I nod. Shake hands. Step away. That night, I walk alone through Detroit's quiet streets. Snow begins to fall. The city glows in gaslight and dreams, and I wonder, how many second comebacks does a man get? If you were me, would you walk away forever? Or would you try again, one more time? Leave me a comment. Tell me what you would have done. As for me, I'm already thinking ahead. A new name, a new company. Durant Motors. They may take the throne from me, but I still have the fire. And the fire always finds a way. Durant Motors. That's the name I give it. Not out of vanity, but out of certainty. Certainty that I still have something to give to this world. Maybe more than ever, it's 1921 and I've just been cast out of General Motors for the second and final time. I am 60 years old, and many men my age would settle into retirement, fade behind a garden fence, let others do the building. Not me. I start again, brick by brick. I gather a small army, former GM allies, Chevrolet engineers, dreamers who still believe in me. The auto world is crowded now. There are dozens of companies. Ford still rules the low-price market with that stubborn black Model T, and General Motors is becoming a fortress. But I know there's room for something more, a different vision. So Durant Motors will be a constellation of its own, just like GM once was. We'll offer a full line of cars, Durant at the center, then Star for the budget-conscious, Rugby for international markets, Flint for mid-tier customers. And for luxury, the proud and shining jewel, Locomobile. I acquire it in 1922, a legacy brand from Connecticut, a real aristocrat's car. Some call me crazy. They say, "Bill, the auto industry is consolidating, not expanding. The little guys are being eaten alive." But I've never followed the herd. I believe in diversity, in vertical integration. I want to control everything, from parts and paint to marketing and sales. I set up plants from New Jersey to Oakland, and I don't stop there. I establish dealerships, banks, parts suppliers. In every city and small town, you start seeing my signs again. Durant, Flint, Star. For a few years, it works. Even into 1925, we're moving cars. We're competing with the giants. At one point, Durant Motors ranks among the top 10 U.S. automakers by volume. I remember walking through the plant floors in Elizabeth, New Jersey, smelling oil and rubber, watching the line move smoothly. Machines humming, workers in rhythm. That's when I feel alive. But something's different this time. Something subtle. We don't have the same advantage we had with Buick or Chevrolet. We're not innovating, we're reacting. Ford slashes prices, and we scramble to catch up. GM releases new models each year, and we try to mimic the pace. But I sense it. Durant Motors is always half a step behind. We lack deep capital reserves. We depend too much on the same dealers who now have cozy relationships with Ford and GM. And my health. It's starting to remind me that I'm not a young man anymore. But I push through. In 1927, we roll out new lines. I give speeches, shake hands, pose for newspaper photos in front of polished new Durant 6s. Every time I see a child point at one on the street, I get a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this will be enough to win back the crown. But deep down, I know the tides are shifting. The economy is heating up too fast. People buying on credit, banks extending wild loans. It all feels too frothy, too inflated. Then comes 1929. If you've ever looked out your window during a calm summer afternoon, not suspecting the storm that's about to roll in, you know the feeling. Black Tuesday hits Wall Street. The market plunges like a stone into dark water, and suddenly, everything stops. Dealers cancel orders. Banks call in loans. People stop buying. Not just cars, everything. It's the Great Depression, though we don't call it that yet. To us, it's just panic. Durant Motors is caught flat-footed. We're too stretched, too dependent on optimism. I try everything, cutting prices, slashing production, even merging with other desperate companies. But it's no use. Our stock collapses. Our plants go silent, one by one. By 1931, Durant Motors is a shell. I keep a small piece going for a little while longer, clinging to hope, but by 1933, it's all but gone. I walk through the empty Flint plant one last time. The air smells like rust and memory. You know, I think about that a lot. How empires fall not with a scream, but a sigh. If you were me after losing General Motors, would you have dared to try again? Would you risk everything on a second mountain, knowing how cold the wind gets up there? Or would you have closed the book? Leave me a message. Tell me what you would have done, and maybe what I should have. Because even now, I'm still not ready to stop dreaming. I never really stop moving. Even after Durant Motors collapses, I don't vanish into the shadows like some forgotten tycoon. I may have lost my companies twice, but not my energy. Not my belief that the world still needs something new, something better. It's 1933 now. The worst of the Great Depression is still clawing at the country like a cold wind that won't let up. Bread lines stretch for blocks. Banks are crumbling like sandcastles at high tide, and good men with calloused hands can't find work. And here I am, broke again. Really broke this time. Not just on paper. Not just stock dropped broke. I mean, I'm borrowing money for groceries. I've gone from billionaire to dependent in less than a decade. The newspapers get a kick out of it. They used to call me the king of capital. Now I'm a symbol of American overreach, of ambition pushed too far. Still, I don't crawl away. I try again. This time I shift my focus. Not back to cars, I've made my peace with that chapter, but toward ideas, something more democratic, something that can help the little guy, the forgotten American. I launch a nationwide chain of bowling alleys, believe it or not. Sounds strange, doesn't it? But I figure that even in hard times, people need entertainment. Simple, clean fun. A way to forget the empty shelves and empty pockets. I also experiment with low-cost housing plans, community-focused businesses, even a new kind of grocery model. And then there's my final grand idea, a cooperative buying club. See, I believe that if small consumers can band together, pool their purchasing power, they can cut out the middleman. Buy direct, pay less, build equity in what they consume. I call it Durant Consumer Corporation. In some ways, it's like a precursor to today's warehouse clubs or community credit unions. But truthfully, none of it really sticks. I give speeches, write letters, chase meetings in boardrooms where men glance at their watches more than my face. It's different now. My name doesn't command the same awe. I'm not Billy Durant, the empire builder, anymore. I'm just an aging idealist with a twinkle in his eye and empty pockets. People ask me why I don't stop. Why I don't just retire in Florida like a proper defeated capitalist. Sit under a palm tree, feed the pigeons, reflect on the good old days. I can't. Because there's still that boy inside me. The one who used to ride horses through Flint with a pocket full of candy and a head full of ideas. The one who turned carriages into cars and cars into empires. And because I know, deep down, that life isn't only about success, it's about movement, about refusing to rust in place. Sometimes I walk past the old GM headquarters and wonder what they'd say if I knocked on the door. Room for one more old salesman? Maybe not. But I don't knock. I just tip my hat to the building and keep walking. I'm not bitter. Not really. I had my time. My run was wild and high and unforgettable. I played the game like a man who knew the rules were still being written. And maybe in some ways, I helped write a few myself. Still, there are nights when I stare at the ceiling and wonder, what if I'd stayed more cautious? What if I hadn't pushed so fast, so far? What if I'd learned how to let go just a little, rather than always trying to steer the whole ship myself? But then again, would I still be me? If you were me, would you have tried to reinvent yourself? To try again after 2 public failures, after being a Wall Street hero turned pariah? Would you have possessed the strength to believe in something new, even when the world was laughing? Leave your thoughts. I'm listening. Because somewhere in me, I still believe the future belongs to those who dare, even when they fall. You might think that by now, I would slow down, that I'd finally accept the quiet, sip tea on a porch swing somewhere, watch the leaves fall without trying to catch them mid-air. But that's not how I'm made. Even when the fire burns low, the embers of ambition still crackle in my chest. I'm in my 70s now. My hands tremble a bit more when I button my coat. My eyesight's not what it used to be, and walking upstairs leaves me winded. But my mind still gallops. I dream about engines in new forms, about electric power, yes. Even then, I imagine it. About people sharing rides instead of each owning a car. Crazy ideas, maybe. But I've always believed that crazy today is innovation tomorrow. In 1936, I take one more swing at the world. I try to revive the cooperative model I told you about earlier, the Durant Consumer Corporation. My idea is simple. Americans need to buy smarter. Instead of dozens of individuals going into debt separately, why not buy wholesale like corporations do? Why not invest in ownership through consumption? I lease a small office space in New York, run flyers in local papers, speak at small-town chambers of commerce. I travel again, not like the grand rail cars I once rode in, but in creaky, slow-moving trains, just trying to spread the word. A few people listen, some even sign up. But I can tell it's an uphill climb. The world's changing fast. Radios are in every home. Motion pictures are talking now. Young men wear slicked hair and laugh at my winged collars. They don't remember Durant the empire builder. They only see a silver-haired old man with one more pitch. That's when the pain starts. Sharp, stabbing, deep in my chest. The doctors tell me it's a heart condition. They want me to fist more. But I still show up at that office. I still keep writing letters, still keep meeting people, because I can't let go. Not yet. There's still one more fire to light. Just one more. You know what the hardest part is? It's not the pain. It's not the failure. It's the quiet erasure. The feeling of being slowly edited out of the American story I helped write. By now, General Motors is one of the biggest corporations on earth. Chevrolet is a household name. But my name? It's missing from the headlines, vanished from the official speeches. It's as if they're afraid that remembering me might spoil the narrative. After all, I was a dreamer, a gambler, a man who built and lost, then built and lost again. But maybe that's the story worth telling. It's not about how high I climbed. It's about how I never stopped climbing, even when the ladder splintered beneath me. Even when I had to build a new one from scraps. There's a moment, late in my life, one I don't often talk about. I'm walking down a busy Manhattan street. A young man, 20s maybe, bumps into me, drops his newspaper. I stoop slowly, hand it back to him. He thanks me and asks, "Say, weren't you that car guy, Durant or something?" For a second, I don't know what to say. Then I nod. "Yes, that was me." He smiles, nods back, and walks away. That's it. No autograph, no thank you. Just a flicker of recognition in a sea of forgetfulness. But that flicker, it stays with me. Because it means my story's still out there, floating in the collective memory, waiting to be rediscovered. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But someday, someone like you, yes, you listening right now, will stumble upon my name and want to know more. Will hear my story and wonder, if I had been William C. Durant, what would I have done differently? Would I have let failure define me? Or would I have kept chasing the wind? Go on, leave a comment. Tell me your answer. Because I think you already know what mine is. I spend the final years of my life not in grand offices or behind the wheel of a new invention, but in the modest quiet of a New York City apartment. The noise of traffic outside my window reminds me of everything I once helped create. Endless rows of automobiles rolling over roads I once imagined before they ever existed. There's a strange poetry in that. The world I dreamed into being now moves without me. Money, that old fair-weather friend, has finally abandoned me. I am bankrupt. Not in spirit, mind you, never there. But in the eyes of banks and ledgers, I am little more than a man who once was. Clara, my beloved wife, she's still beside me. She brings me soup on cold days, tells me to stop trying to fix the radio myself. Sometimes I laugh. Sometimes I let the silence just wrap around me like a well-worn coat. I read a lot in those days. Biographies, philosophy, the papers. I keep a notebook too, still sketching ideas, still dreaming about better ways to build, better ways to organize people's lives, fairer ways to do business. There's something strange about living long enough to see your own story fall out of fashion. Henry Ford, he's the name kids know. Even my old friend Louis Chevrolet has more glory than me, and he only stayed with the company a few years before selling his stake. That one stings, I won't lie. But I remind myself that none of it would have existed without my vision, my relentless belief in the impossible. Sometimes I imagine a world where I never lost GM the second time. What would that look like? Would I have made it the world's first trillion-dollar company? Or maybe I'd have built more schools, hospitals, whole towns built around better values, better systems. You ever think about that? What if you had held on just a little longer? What if you had turned left instead of right? If you were me, in that high tower in 1920, as the board conspired behind closed doors, would you have played your cards differently? Or would you, like me, keep betting on vision over caution? I want you to really think about that and write it down. If you could send a message to me in those final days at General Motors, what would you say? Would you tell me to slow down, to build less, protect more? Or would you cheer me on one more roll of the dice? There's something beautiful about being forgotten, too. It clears the noise. I no longer need to prove anything. I can finally just reflect. When I walk through the streets, I see children playing, families piling into their cars. I see the machine of modern life, and I know deep in my bones that I helped oil its gears. Did you know, by the time I passed, General Motors employed over 600,000 people? That's not just numbers. That's homes, dinners on tables, shoes on children's feet. That's what I really built. Not just cars, but a system of opportunity. In the end, we all want to leave something behind. A monument, a memory, a whisper on the wind. Mine isn't made of stone or steel. It's made of motion. It's every engine that starts, every journey that begins, every spark of a new idea. As I feel the weight of years settle in my bones, I don't resist it. I welcome it. I've lived more lives than most. I've been the carriage king, the auto czar, the comeback kid, and the forgotten dreamer. And now I am the story you're hearing as you drift into sleep. Close your eyes, little one. Let the engines of the past hum you into peace. And now, the candle flickers low. My story nears its end. The world outside my window has changed so much since I first held the reins of a horse-drawn carriage. Where once the clatter of hooves marked the rhythm of progress, now the smooth hum of automobiles whispers a different kind of future. Electric, quiet, sleek. Sometimes I wonder what I'd have done with batteries instead of gasoline, with satellites and sensors instead of carburetors and axles. But in my final days, there are no more factories for me to walk. No shareholders to win over. No headlines to rewrite. I am simply a man. William Crapo Durant. Born in Boston, raised in Flint, builder of dreams and breaker of limits. It is 1947. I can feel the days shortening, not just on the calendar, but in my bones. My hair is thin, my hands are slower, but my mind still races. Always one more idea, one more company I could try to build, one more market to understand, one more corner of this ever-moving machine called capitalism to fix, to humanize. I pass away on March 18th, quietly. The obituaries mention GM and Chevrolet. Some even recall Durant Motors, or that I once challenged Henry Ford's empire and, briefly, won. But they don't speak much of my fire. The way I used to walk into a failing company, take one look around, and say, "We're going to make it shine." They don't say that I was one of the first to see the automobile not just as a machine, but as a symbol, a gateway, a freedom. Nor do they mention how many gambles I took, not for glory, but because I believed in people, in potential, in the messy, clumsy beauty of progress. It's funny, isn't it? To think that history, so long and vast, makes room for so few names. But you've made room for mine. In your thoughts tonight, as the dark wraps around your bed and dreams settle into your breath, you've let me speak again. That's no small thing. If you've listened all the way here, I thank you for remembering me, for carrying a piece of my journey. You know, there's a boy or girl somewhere right now, tinkering in a garage, dreaming up a new way to move, to build, to bring people together. Maybe they'll never know my name. But if something I touched, some thread in the tapestry of invention helps them along, then I live on. And I want to ask you one last time, what would you do if you had been me? If you stood at the crossroads of invention and risk, would you push forward like I did, or would you play it safe? Let me know in the comments, even if it's just a whisper across time. Now let the hum of the past settle softly in your chest. Let the legacy of wheels and gears, of vision and stubbornness, cradle you. Because my journey, though over, never truly ends. Let's slow things down now, gentle listener. Breathe in, let it out easy. Let the lights of the past dim gently, like the soft glow of an old street lamp on a foggy night in Flint. You've come a long way with me, from horse-drawn buggies to roaring assembly lines, from skyscraping ambition to quiet retirement. And I thank you for every step you walked beside me. Even though I left this world decades ago, little pieces of me remain in what you see every day. That car parked outside your home, that factory you drive past on the way to work, that dealership on the corner. Somewhere, a ripple of my choices touches those things, and through those it touches you. I wasn't perfect. I was reckless sometimes. I moved too fast, trusted too much, believed too deeply in things others said wouldn't work. But I also built things that mattered, that helped people live better lives. I gave jobs, offered chances, and fought for ideas when no one else would. And isn't that all we really want? To be remembered, not for our riches, but for the good we tried to leave behind. I look now at the world that came after me. My descendants, and the generations after them, live in a time where machines talk, and roads are filled with silent, electric dreams. The company I built has seen highs and lows, just like me. But it lives on. It reinvents itself year after year, just as I once tried to do. And that's my true legacy. Not just General Motors or Chevrolet, but the spirit of trying again, of building forward, even when the road bends out of sight. Maybe you're lying there now, your eyes soft and heavy. Maybe you've got dreams of your own, ideas, inventions, revolutions waiting to happen. Take this gentle advice from an old man who spent his life chasing a better world. Don't wait. Don't listen to those who say it can't be done. And don't be afraid to lose, because sometimes the greatest victories are born from the deepest defeats. So, dream, build, risk, fail, rise, love it all. Now rest easy. Let the night hold you the way the earth holds a seed, knowing something beautiful may bloom when the sun returns. Good night, dear listener. Sweet dreams.